When Elon Musk walked into the diner and sat in Olivia's section, she had no idea her life was about to take an unexpected turn. Adjusting her apron, she glanced at the clock above the counter. It was almost 7 p.m., the time when the evening rush usually began to slow down. For most people, this small roadside diner was just a quick stop on their journey, a place to grab a meal before moving on. But for Olivia, it was much more. At 28, she worked long shifts here while raising her 6-year-old son, Ethan. Every tip and paycheck went toward keeping their modest apartment and covering his growing list of school expenses. She moved gracefully between tables, her warm smile masking the exhaustion she felt deep inside. The regular customers knew parts of her story, and some would quietly leave an extra dollar or two when they could. But Olivia never asked for pity. Life had taught her early on that the world wasn't always fair, and the only way forward was to keep going. The bell above the door jingled, pulling Olivia's attention toward the entrance. She expected to see another weary traveler stopping for a quick bite. Instead, a man entered with a quiet confidence that seemed to shift the energy in the room. He wore a simple button-up shirt and jeans, his weathered face partially obscured by a hat pulled low over his brow. It took a moment, but when his gaze met hers, she immediately recognized him. Elon Musk. Her breath caught. She had never been the type to be starstruck, too busy with real-life struggles to pay much attention to celebrities. But this was different. Elon Musk wasn't just any famous figure. He was a legend, someone her late father used to talk about while they watched science documentaries together. For a brief second, memories of those evenings with her father surfaced, but she pushed them aside. Elon had chosen a corner booth, and it was her job to serve him. Yet, something about his presence made her heartbeat quicken. Taking a deep breath, Olivia grabbed her notepad and pen before making her way over. As she approached, she noticed the details: the steady but slightly aged hands resting on the table, the sharp eyes beneath his hat that seemed to take in everything without revealing much in return. He looked up as she stopped beside him, his expression calm and unreadable. "Good evening," she greeted him, keeping her voice steady. "What can I get for you?" He glanced at the menu for only a moment before setting it aside. "Just a coffee and a burger. Medium rare, no onions. Simple enough." Olivia jotted it down, though she couldn't ignore the slight tremor in her hand as she turned to leave. Elon's voice stopped her. "Busy night?" She turned back, surprised. Most customers didn't make small talk unless they were regulars. "Not too bad," she replied with a faint smile. "Keeps me moving." He nodded slightly. "You've got a good pace. Not easy to keep up in a place like this." She blinked, caught off guard. Was he complimenting her? Elon Musk, one of the biggest names in tech, had noticed her work ethic. She managed another polite smile before stepping away to place his order, but her mind raced. Why was he here, of all places? He could afford the most luxurious restaurants, yet here he was, drinking water from a chipped glass, waiting for a simple burger. When his food was ready, Olivia carefully carried the plate and coffee to his table. As she set them down, she caught a brief but appreciative glance from him. "Thank you," he said. "You're welcome," she replied, trying to keep her tone casual. Yet, she couldn't shake the feeling that this moment, this ordinary exchange, was different. As the evening went on, she kept herself busy, serving other customers, refilling coffee cups, and clearing tables. But every so often, her eyes drifted toward Elon's booth. He wasn't in a hurry to eat. He sat there, sipping his coffee, seemingly lost in thought. When he finally finished his meal, he raised a hand slightly to get her attention. Olivia wiped her hands on her apron and approached, keeping her expression composed. "Everything all right?" she asked. "Perfect," he replied with a small smile. That was one of the best burgers I've had in a long time. She chuckled lightly. I'll let the cook know. He'll appreciate that. For a moment, Elon said nothing. He simply looked at her, and in that silence, it felt like he was studying her. Not in a judgmental way, but with a quiet curiosity. You've got a good energy about you, he finally said. You remind me of someone I knew a long time ago. Olivia blinked. Was that a compliment? A memory? She wasn't sure. Well, thank you, she managed, feeling warmth rise to her cheeks. I just try to get through the day like everyone else. He nodded. That's the trick, isn't it? Just getting through. Before she could respond, he reached into his pocket, pulled out a few bills, and placed them on the table along with a folded piece of paper. Keep the change, he said as he stood up, and read this when you get a moment. Olivia stared at the note, her heart pounding. Thank you, she said softly, unsure if he even heard her as he walked toward the door. The bell above it jingled, and just like that, he was gone. For a few moments, she stood frozen, staring at the folded note as if it held something far more important than just words. What had he written? And why did he seem so intent on her reading it? But there were still customers to serve, and Olivia wasn't one to neglect her responsibilities. Even as her mind swirled with anticipation, she tucked the note into her apron pocket and went back to work. By the time she finally had a moment to herself, the diner had quieted down. With trembling fingers, she unfolded the paper and began to read.